Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from Breaking News Show in Honolulu. And with me is Dr. Peter Tarlow. He's actually currently in Washington, D.C. Peter, we always start with the weather, and if I'm looking outside, it's cloudy here, but it's nice and warm. People are at the beach. It's not raining. How's everything in Washington, D.C.?
It's been a terrible few days here. It's cold. It's rainy. If you are used to Fahrenheit, the temperature hasn't gotten much above 50 degrees. If you are in the world of Celsius, that's probably about 10 degrees Celsius. When it's not rainy, it's very cloudy and misty. But the last 3 days and all day tomorrow, which is Mother's Day, it's also going to be raining. So this is really hard for tourists on the mall, because this is the end here of cherry blossom season, which is a big deal in Washington. But it's been so cold and windy and rainy that most of the cherry blossoms are on the ground rather than on the trees. So this has been we need a little bit of warming here. People are really asking, when are we going to get some global warming? Because it's really necessary. Right now we have global freezing.
Well, how's the situation since you are in Washington, in our nation's capital? How do you see, is tourism increasing around? Do you see a lot besides, of course, you have always an international crowd?
Yes, you do. Well, and by the way, if my face goes in and out a little bit, because I'm sitting in a chair while I'm babysitting with grandchildren. But you're not seeing many people on the mall right now. But that doesn't mean they're not here. It just means that because the weather's been so crummy, most people don't want to be outside. So there's no way really to know how many people are in the hotels. The plane coming in on, I came in on May 3rd, and the plane was pretty full. High season starts Memorial Day. So that's another 2 weeks. And normally the mall, which is the big park between the Capitol and the Lincoln Memorial, is filled with people and that's where the Smithsonian is and all the big museums. But we'll have to see how it goes. They've finally gone past COVID, or at least COVID for now. You do have to make an appointment, however, to go to the Smithsonian. Used to be you could just walk in. It's still for free, but you have to get a set time when you're going. So they're trying to limit the number of people who can attend a museum at any time. So hopefully the weather will get better. Summer is bound to come eventually. But right now, you're not seeing a lot of people on the streets or in the Potomac or in any of the Alexandria or all the wonderful tourism spots that they have in Washington, because it's too cold and rainy to be outside.
And Peter, interesting subject, changing the subject a little bit. You've been approached by NASA, I believe, in regard to out of space travel or Martian travel security. How much weirder can it get? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, actually, I approached them. They didn't approach me.
Okay.
But I think, eventually, right now, of course, nobody's going to be traveling to Mars or to Jupiter, to any of the planets. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't start preparing and thinking about it and coming up with ideas. And so, yeah, I'm starting to work with some of the people at NASA to try to come up with ideas that when tourism does hit, and it'll come eventually, we may not be alive to see it, but it will be there. We will at least have plans, and people in the 23rd or 24th century will know that we in the 21st century, we're not just crazy when it comes to COVID and to the masks and all the other silly things we did, but instead they'll know that we actually did some serious thinking and left them some plans, and then they can modify those plans. On the other hand, as you know, when we're speaking a little bit of COVID, there's now lots of questions about different reactions that people are having, especially to the Pfizer one. And so we don't know quite what's going on. As you know, their children are being having some real problems that are now coming through. And I believe Johnson & Johnson has had some problems now that they're talking about. And so, these were emergencies and we had to do it at the time, but we're now discovering that possibly, and I want to say possibly, there may be some adverse reactions to some of those, some of the vaccinations, of which I took also. I mean, so I'm not, but we may discover over the next year that there may be some real medical problems that develop.
Well, let's hope not. But I think we had enough of this for a while. But of course,
yes,
we need to monitor it. And
yes.
yes, I think Johnson & Johnson was kind of ousted, can no longer be used for vaccines.
That's right, right, yes. Yeah, but there's some other issues that people are starting to see, all sorts of secondary and tertiary negative effects that are coming from some of the vaccines. Not with everybody, I want to make that really clear, but some people are having it. So the general idea of vaccinating everyone may not have been the smartest move. But again,
but what kind of side effects have you heard people are having?
Pardon?
What size of?
Well, we're discovering that there's been problems with children having kidney failure, if I'm not mistaken. And that we have a large number of children now, it's been in all the news about kids being sent to hospitals. We're discovering that problems of blood clots, especially among adults, and thrombosis, and especially people took the Pfizer vaccine, and that they don't see it at first, and then all of a sudden it's there. There have been other problems that are starting to throw, that people are having problems dealing with issues of antibiotics, and that they're not necessarily working the way they should. We don't know if this is 100%. I mean, a lot of these are now theories. What it's saying is medicine is not a pure science. Medicine is both an art and a science. And some of the things, sometimes we solve one problem and we create another problem. So we'll know about this in another while. I did want to make it clear, I did believe in the vaccines. I have had my 4th shot. So I want to make that clear that, I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any means at all, but I do think possibly the vaccine may not be right for everyone, that some people, it may do more damage than good. And other people may do a lot more good than damage. Bottom line, speak with your physician, speak to someone who knows your body, and just don't listen to the news like us. Go and get, it's expert medical advice about your own particular situation.
Well, interesting subject, and I'm sure everyone is going to follow development.
Yes.
And we all want to know, and I'm also vaccinated 4 times like you. So hopefully that's it, so.
Yes, you're exactly. Meanwhile, we're starting to face the summer. And I think it's really important for the tourism industry to be preparing for the summer. And one of the big problems, of course, we're seeing, both in much of the Western world, is the whole issue of inflation and how that's going to cost airline prices. I saw yesterday or today that the Nigerian airlines are not flying on Monday because the cost of fuel has become so expensive. As a protest, they're closing down all air flights in Nigeria on Monday as a kind of a protest. And I think the real issue is the tourism industry cannot change the world's economy, but we need to be prepared that if there are major rise in prices, or if there should be shortages, like as you are aware, where right now there's a baby formula shortage in the United States and much of the world. Supply chain problems. How are we going to be prepared for that? How will we deal with the summer issues when prices are going up? Or how will we deal with the summer issues if the inflation continues? And it probably will continue at least for the summer. So these are things that I think the tourism industry needs to be thinking about. The other thing is that people are going to be a little scared because, as you know, the last few days, at least in the United States and in Europe, the stock markets had tremendous drops, especially in the United States. So if you have high inflation and people feel poor on top of that, that's a double whammy. And the tourism industry needs to be thinking of inexpensive or other alternatives, not trying to recoup what they lost over 2 years, but rather not make this summer another loss. And that, therefore, really go out and come up with customer service ideas, new creative ways of funding, and new creative ways of charging people. And one of the big problems we also is that there's a lack of qualified people. A lot of people in the tourism industry stopped working in it because of COVID. And now that tourism is coming back, We don't have people to clean hotels or serve in restaurants, or every restaurant I go to has a sign up saying help wanted, and they can't find people to work.
And that's definitely a problem. I can see it here in Hawaii. Yes, we can see the help wanted sign everywhere. Burger King is paying high amounts of starting upfront payment for people who wanted to get a job. The hotel rooms are still only cleaned every third day unless you request otherwise. Yes, the industry has definitely changed. And
Yes.
Also, you know, when it comes to our aloha spirit, spirit with a smile, you know, it's not always there anymore. You know, people are frustrated. The work
Yes.
is hard. Yeah.
So think about it. My stock market, the value of my portfolio has gone down. The cost of an air ticket is going up, and the amount of service I'm getting is less. People may not want to travel. We're coming up with a deadly combination of lower income, higher prices, and worse customer service. We've got to break this cycle. And the first thing we need to do is get those smiles back. Get people to, even if you can't handle everything, have really the best possible customer training so that people have a sense of feeling good. The other thing we got to think about is the whole issue of security and crime. I think I sent you today, two really major developments took place in Mexico. One was a day or so ago. There was another shootout. People were killed on the beach in Cancun. Not good at all. And in the state of Jalisco, which is where Puerto Vallarta is, a major tourism city, the European Union has said that people working for it can no longer travel on the highways in the state of Jalisco. And so, again, that's not good, you know, because that's not only going to impact American tourism from Mexico, which is the main theme of Mexico, but it's also going to start impacting European tourism. And if the European embassies are afraid to travel on the highways, that sends a message to the European tourists: maybe find another alternative or don't travel.
Well, and in Mexico, of course, you have the drug cartels that sometimes are the cause of all these security issues. These are not the people, and not even the ordinary thieves that are causing this problem. These are big time organizations that are fighting for power and for territory. And that, of course, to combine with tourism is definitely a deadly combination.
Yeah.
But
actually, on some of the areas in Mexico, it's not the cartels. The cartels actually sell a lot of drugs to tourists. It is sometimes just the guys on the street who are doing it. The cartels actually would like to be peaceful because they make more money in selling drugs than anything else, or in, of course, illegally bringing people across the border. And the other side of it is a lot of the cartels are now so well implanted in the United States because of the open border policies and of this new T-42 should go into effect. It's predicted 18,000 illegal immigrants a day will be crossing the border. We have, so the good news is that Latin America is losing a lot of its criminals. The bad news is many of them are coming to the United States. So we're going to have to really deal with that. But it's a real problem that we never had crime in the tourism areas before because they were afraid of losing the goose that lays the golden egg. And now we've had shootouts in Acapulco, twice in Cancun, and Playa de Carmen, which is a famous tourism spot. The nickname for that in Spanish is Playa de Crimen, or Crime Beach. So that's not good. And
it's not good. And of course, the extreme measures some countries are taking. Probably the most extreme measure I know is the Philippines. Not that I would endorse this in any way, but the former Philippine president literally ordered his police force to shoot drug dealers on sight. There was no more trial. There was no more arrest.
Yeah, that's pretty.
That's pretty severe.
Yeah, that's pretty severe, especially if they mistake your identity and you really were not a drug dealer.
and I'm sure there are cases like this in there.
Yes.
But how do you? But on the other hand, when I went to the Philippines and I talked to some of the people there, it did bring the drug crime down to tremendously. So it did.
Of course.
You know?
Yes. Well, you know, places that have very strict governments tend to have very low crime. And I lived in Chile during the time of Pinochet, and he was a terrible dictator. I'm not in any way going to say he was a good guy. He wasn't. But you know what? We had almost no crime in Chile, other than the crime committed by the government. Now, and I want to emphasize that the government did lots of its own stuff and abuse of human rights. But too liberal policies often, you have to have some punishment. You can't just give everybody hugs. And if you're just going to give everybody hugs, you're going to have problems. There's got to be consequences for actions. Now, I'm not saying you should shoot people on the street. You know, I do not endorse that. But on the other hand, you look at a place like Los Angeles or San Francisco, where it's not even a felony anymore if you steal under $1,000. You know what? People go with calculators, and it's a steal. And the people who are really suffering, look at the number of Walmarts that have now closed their doors, which are essential services of pharmacies, and you can't go to a pharmacy because they don't want to open because they've lost so much money to pilferage. It's not the wealthy who ever suffer in this. It's always the poor.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, some of these responses is amazing. I went here to one of the major department stores here in my neighborhood. It's an upscale department store. It's not a Walmart. And I was looking, couldn't even say it on the air, I was looking to buy some underwear. And when the entire section of underwear was literally empty, there was nothing there. So I asked, do you guys no longer sell this? I said, yeah, we sell it. What do you need? And they had it all locked up. And I said,
Yeah.
what locked this up? Well, you see, there's an emergency door and we cannot watch everything. And people just take the underwear and escape through the emergency exit.
Yeah.
We cannot close the emergency exit.
Yeah. 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 But again, in an upscale place, you can afford to ask. But the poor can't go to a place like that.
Right.
And so what's happening is, and it's not a question of just underwear, it's a question of of pharmaceuticals, of aspirin, of basic, Band-Aids, of basic commodities. And these stores are leaving. They're not locking it up. They're just closing their doors and leaving. So you have San Francisco between 2021 and 2022, in the last 12 months, has lost 100,000 people. And all sorts of stores have left the Bay Area. I think you were there about a year ago. And you were shocked to see the number of homeless and how the city went from one of the most beautiful cities in the world to one of the, really, you don't want to be there. And people are pulling out of conventions and they're not coming up. So when you don't come out of convention, the city loses a lot of money. And then if the stores are not open for people to go after the convention to go shopping, all those taxes, all that money is being lost, and then you have to cut back. So crime becomes a real cancer that destroys and gnaws away at the heart of the tourism industry.
But of course, when you look at name brand stores like the Walmart guys, I mean, can't they afford their own security? I mean, they cannot rely on the police.
But you can't arrest somebody in California if they steal under $1,000. There's nothing you can do unless you're going to tackle them in the middle of the store. The liberal prosecutors have basically come on the side of the criminal and not on the victim.
Well, I mean, they're still prosecuted. It may not be a felony.
No, they're not.
No,
that's where you're wrong. You're not prosecuted if you don't steal over $1,000.
But what's the consequences?
Zero.
That doesn't sound.
That's
right.
why stores are closing. Look it up. That's why you have now a major recall effort both in San Francisco and in Los Angeles. And people have been told, do not walk on the street with jewelry. Do not walk on the street with a nice cell phone. That's your responsibility if it gets stolen. The police will do nothing. That's become a major problem. That's when you become the criminal rights instead of the victim's rights. But this is the whole issue that's going on with George Gascon and with, I forgot the name of the district attorney in San Francisco. crime has gone through the roof and people are fleeing.
Oh, that sounds unbelievable, Peter. Let's do some research on this, and maybe we can come back with another discussion. Maybe invite some of the legislator or whoever is behind decriminalizing.
Theft. Now, what's happened, and of course, you can play a statistical game. If I want crime to go down, if I only had one police officer in a city, crime goes down because nobody can report the crime. You can't find the police officer. If you make everything not criminal, crime goes down. But it doesn't mean you haven't suffered. It doesn't mean you're not a victim, because it's how you measure it. And one of the key things we know in tourism, it's all a statistical game, how you measure it. And if you measure it, if you change the measurement scale, then you change the results. But yes, I think that would be a really interesting session. And maybe some of our viewers would like to come and join, or this would be a really good public session for us to have.
Yeah, well, we may have to research this a little bit. I'm actually just now Google it, and I have a site here called Fact Check, and they do confirm your $1,000 limit for felonies, but it turns out to be a misdemeanor. So you should still get.
If you're not, a misdemeanor is not prosecuted in California.
Well, I don't know, but that's definitely.
Look, read it, read the rest of it, and you'll see you will not be prosecuted. Period.
Yes, you know, you can steal up to $950 worth of merchandise in California without consequences under Proposition 47. That's the proposition you're talking about. The proposition reduces the punishment for certain theft crimes, but classified shoplifting still as a misdemeanor.
Yes, a misdemeanor is not prosecuted. If you get a misdemeanor, it's like if you got jaywalking. How many people go to jail for jaywalking?
Well, misdemeanor in many jurisdictions, of course, I don't know.
This is not California.
Up to 1 year in jail.
No. No one. You don't even go to court. That's the whole problem. That's why, look now, while you're Googling, how many stores have left California, especially in areas where the poor are suffering, and such as in the poor neighborhoods of San Francisco, because of the fact that so much is being stolen. They can't afford to stay open.
That's tragic.
And that's really tragic. And part of it is, and this is part now of the responsibility of us as part of the media. Why are we not speaking more about this? Why are you shouldn't be just Googling at the last moment. These are things we have to know. And crime destroys tourism. I cannot say that enough. If you have a world where you have people are not afraid and there are no consequences to actions, there will be no tourism.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And this is an interesting story to follow. And I agree, if this was the case, the way you say this, that would be outrageous, I think. And I could not believe the people of California would support this. Because of course not everyone is a criminal in California. So
no. But there was first of all, most people don't pay attention to elections for district attorneys. Secondly, most people in California is pretty much a one-party state like Hawaii, and whoever gets the nomination, that's it. Most people don't do any more exploring than that. So there's lots of problems. By the way, it's not only California. You're seeing the same problem in Philadelphia. You're seeing the same problem in New York now. You're seeing the same problem certainly in Chicago, where murder is almost a weekend experience. And now there, you've had police, as you saw, well, you were actually in the Philippines, but there was liberal newspaper reporters were already questioning the mayor and how she could dare run again for re-election as cops are being shot on the Magic Mile.
Well, it's a crazy world. I mean, nothing seems to be the way it was, and it's fast moving, and maybe it's not moving in the right direction. So let's hope we can get things, some people will help to get things back on track. But Peter, this was an interesting discussion.
Yes.
More, and we should actually add some guests to it and see
if
we can make it even more interactive. And I know you're with your grandchildren in Washington, D.C., so
and I'm going to hope that
it's going to rain so you can spend some time with them,
Yes, and by the way, to anyone in the United States, I know in much of Europe, no, that's not true. Most of Europe is also tomorrow's celebrating Mother's Day. So and if you are in a country that's celebrating Mother's Day tomorrow, happy Mother's Day.
Yes, happy Mother's Day to everyone who's watching and has mothers. Enjoy your day. Let's do hope the weather is going to get nicer wherever you are.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
If you wanted to watch this show, it's going to repeat every 2 hours for the next 24 hours. And then after this, just go or anytime go to breakingnewsshow.com. And you can find this and many other events. We did many with Peter and myself, and you can listen to us and many of our guests anytime you want. If you forget the name breakingnewsshow.com, just go to eTurbo News, click on the links, or go to our YouTube channel. We also have everything filed on YouTube. We're at youtube.com/travel news group. For anyone else, enjoy your weekend, and we hope we talk to you again very soon. And follow the news on eTurbo News. We're going to be there for you 24/7, and we're watching the world. Thank you.
All right,
Peter.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Enjoy the weather in Hawaii. It's a lot better than Washington, D.C. right now.
Well, I can see the sun is actually coming through right now. So
good.
Maybe it's a good time to go downstairs.
Go get some sun for me. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Peter. Bye-bye.